Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session, to this hot topic employer panel discussion on making the right impression in the virtual recruitment process. My name is Christine Bolander, and I'm the Employability Development Manager here at the Careers and Employability Center at Durham University. And I'm pleased to share this session today. And I think it's a hot topic for us. It came up last year at our first virtual careers fairs and also other employer events that went online with the pandemic. And but it's also important regarding the virtual assessment centers and other recruitment activities. So today I'm delighted that we are having panelists from a wide range of sectors with us. And so we have Juliet from Mars. Welcome, Juliet. Sean from Frontline.
Hi.
Georgina from IBM.
Hello.
Björn from Hilton.
Afternoon.
And Patricia from Eversheds. So
Hi.
and also a big welcome to the students. There was huge interest in this event, so that's great. So, but without further ado, could I just ask you maybe to introduce yourselves, what your role is, and just to say a few words about your company. Can I start with Juliet, please?
Of course. So my name's Juliet Ayling. I am the Early Talent Manager for UK and Ireland for Mars. And Mars is a global FMCG organisation, so fast-moving consumer goods. And we both make and market some of the most well-known products that I'm sure you've all got in your households. So most well-known for obviously the Mars bar, Skittles, any chocolate you'd basically found in a celebrations box, but also Wrigley's chewing gum, Starburst, Skittles. We have a pet segment as well, so you can see on the wall behind me. I've positioned myself so you can see one of our most well-known brands, Whiskers, all of the pedigree products. We also have a food segment, so Uncle Ben's and Dolmio. So lots and lots of global brands that you'll all be familiar with.
Thank you, Juliet. Before I forget, this event is being recorded, so just that everybody is aware of that. And it will be made available on the Careers Discovery feeds on the Student Services portal later on. Thank you, Juliet. And I think it's a real shame that this event is not being held online, because I would have loved to get some Mars bars from you.
So whenever you start working at Mars, all your family and friends want you to go to the stuff shop and stock up.
Exactly. Okay, so over to you, Sean.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Perryman. I'm a recruitment officer at Frontline. Frontline is a charity that believes that children should not be limited by their familial and social circumstances. And our main sectors involve social work, the employment, the training, and the deployment of social workers, along with training social work managers and being involved in child support just across the board. In terms of my role, I work in the recruitment team for our Frontline programme, which is our graduate scheme for people to train to be social workers. And yes, you could be placed sort of like across the country, but yeah, my role is sort of about making sure that we attract the right talent for our graduate programme.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Sean. And Georgina, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Georgina McRae. I am on the graduate scheme at IBM, which stands for International Business Machines. IBM is a global technology company. They employ for the graduates, there's sort of two areas. There's the technology world and there's the consulting world. The consulting position's open right this week, so you could sign up and apply for that. In that world, in my role, I am selling data storage solutions to customers and learning online from my team. You can see I'm not in a fun office with whiskers. I'm in my bedroom, but it works. I am in the office sometimes, but I have to wear a mask there. So today I wanted to not have to wear a mask and be able to be on screen. Yes, so in our company, it's quite big, 350,000 employees, and we sell business to business. So most businesses might be talking to us about cloud solutions, AI solutions, different applications and software. And there's a whole world of technology that IBM is involved in all the parts of it. Things like quantum, if any of you on this call are doing STEM degrees, there's huge numbers of teams that are researching it and learning about it. And every part of technology is part of IBM.
Thank you, Georgina. I didn't even know what IBM, what the abbreviation meant. So I learned something already today. And over to you, Björn, now.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Björn. I work for Hilton. I'm based in Amsterdam and I'm very Dutch, so forgive me my accent on that side. I've been working for Hilton this week for 15 years in the field of graduate recruitment for Europe, Middle East and Africa, overseeing here our fast-track graduate programs, including our elevator scheme, our finance scheme, all across our regions, internships, corporate, hotel-based, as well as direct entry roles. So if you've got any queries on that, please feel free to reach out. So fun fact is that last week we won the Target Jobs Award, which was the sector awards in the UK as the most popular graduate recruiter. So we're very proud of winning that award with my team in the UK. And Hilton has been announced a great place to work in the UK last year, even though during the pandemic. So that was something really proud to have. Clearly, we're very keen to bring in a lot of Durham's university students into our business. So I'm sure that during the conversations, we'll have opportunities to discuss those.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Björn. And last but not least, Patricia.
Hi, my name's Patricia. I work for Evershed Sutherland. So we are a global law firm specialising in commercial law. My role is as an emerging talent business partner. So I deal with all of our early careers recruiting across apprenticeships, training contracts, vacation schemes. Similarly, shameless plug, but our roles are open at the moment. So take a look at our website. All of our vacation schemes and insight evening applications are open until the 21st of November. Little bit about us. We've got 74 offices over 35 countries. We had a merger, Eversheds and Sutherland merged about 4 years ago. So we have transatlantic relationships. And we've got sort of circa 5,000 people, 3,000 of those are lawyers. So most of our opportunities are in law.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to ask the panel a few questions, but please feel free also to put questions in the chat and we will try to answer as many as possible after, maybe 10 minutes before the close of the session. We'll see how it goes time-wise. But so the Q&A section will be visible to everybody. If you prefer just to send a private message that can be read out, then you can send it to careers events. That is also a possibility. But please, don't hesitate to put questions in the chat. Right, so now I'm going to ask my first question. So what types of virtual recruitment events or activities have you been involved in recently? Would anybody like to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So I think actually it's probably useful to go back in how the world of careers fairs has changed over the last couple of years, because it's been significant. So taking us back to a pre-COVID world, in terms of your choice of careers fairs, there'd be less of them. So you'd probably have some key events that your university would run that you would attend, and there'd be lots and lots of employers there that you could go and speak to and get a really wide variety of bits of information from lots of employers. When COVID hit, obviously, those events could no longer take place. So what's happened is there's been this huge shift to virtual careers fairs. And what that means for you guys is that there is a lot more choice of events to attend. So some organisations will be putting on their own virtual events, and I'd say most big graduate employers are probably doing something along those lines. So of course, that immediately gives you hundreds and hundreds of individual different events to attend, as well as some group events where you'll have a group of employers, albeit much smaller than it would have been previously, but a group of employers that would talk to you. And then we also do some workshop events, so events where there's tips and advice on how to get through, for example, our particular recruitment process. So, Mars have been involved in all of the above. And, what I would say is that one of the biggest challenges you have is identifying which is the most important and relevant for you to go to. I won't go into that in too much detail because I think we'll discuss that later. But yeah, I've just started off there with a few options.
Right. So the virtual careers fairs, yes, that is a big one. What about the others? Sean, do you want to come in? Or?
Yeah, I can do. So the virtual events that we run, much like Juliet said, obviously we have the career fairs, but we also run events around changing perceptions when it comes to social work. So a lot of our work is about educating students on what a career in the public sector looks like, and also what a career as a social worker looks like. And so some of our events, if not most of them actually, are ones that we're either hosting in-house or at a university, where we're providing some kind of insight into social work, or we're having a group discussion, or we're having sometimes they can be more intimate, sometimes they can be bigger, but normally the format of those is a lot more interactive than a lot of your typical like career fair, like virtual career fairs where you'd come to a stall and things like that. So I think the virtual events can come in a variety of shades. And I think, it's one of those things where it really does depend on kind of the employer and the kind of things that we're looking to educate students about or give students information about, if that makes sense.
That's a really good example as well, an interactive session like this. Any other examples maybe from the other panelists?
I think as well as the sort of university organised careers fairs, individual employer events, a lot of what we've been doing over the past 12 months, particularly with COVID, is liaising directly with university societies and running, as Sean said, more intimate events, obviously at the campus fairs. In person, you'd speak to 200-300 people a day, and it's just not feasible to be able to get a good level of engagement via those campus fairs for us with the amount of people that we used to. So actually where we're investing probably most of our time is in those more intimate sort of 20-30 people coming to a specific event around a specific topic. So for example, a panel event such as this, or training around application workshops or things like that. So we've things that we used to do on campus in person, we have been able to sort of move those more intimate settings to either Zoom calls or team calls, and really organise those as well.
Okay, thank you. That's really insightful, because I think students need to know how to engage in these more intimate settings as well. So that's good to know. Björn and Georgina.
Yeah, so one would question if this is only the intimate platforms actually for people to interact. So, I mean, following what Juliet said, I think that's a very good introduction. Obviously the world was completely pulled upside down just overnight. And so there was no other choice than actually doing things online. And whereas I think initially everybody enjoyed the fact of being on Teams and being on Zoom and being on other platforms, we were invited, similar to the others, to lots of career events. It easily shows that, our industry is an industry where people are working with people. And so meeting people in person actually adds more value than meeting people purely online, because it's very hard to differentiate yourself, to sell yourself in an in-person, when you're not actually meeting each other in person. But we have to go with the flow. It is what it is, and I really hope that in the near future we will have more of a hybrid way of actually meeting up with students and career partners again, because I think that really adds value to the individual as well as to the organizations, and that we need to find a common way how we can do that. Next to everything that has been mentioned before, we also were running our assessment centers from our graduate schemes online, which was another fun first for us to really see how that all went. Completely different than the in-person one-a-day assessment centers that we would normally run in one of our locations, either Dubai, London, or Amsterdam, wherever it was. And I guess we just need to see what the future might bring if we're able to go visit your campuses again and meet with students. I fully agree that, when you are there and you're one of the many employers to represent, it is something very confusing for students to identify what the company identity is all about and what actually opportunities might be all about. So having more the intimate events that you can set up might be working nicer. But I think that there has to be a kind of a mix of both in the remits in the future.
Yeah, that seems to be the future. That's what I'm hearing from other employers as well. Georgina, do you have anything to add regarding types of events?
Yes, a couple of things. Really interesting to hear everyone's point of view, particularly because I'm on the graduate scheme, so I'm not helping with recruitment. So for me, I have my view of the events I've been involved with and not all the wider ones, but I've definitely picked up some things that I wish I knew when I applied. So I've been at my company for a year and a half or so. One thing is, being a very big company, they have their calendar. So a bit like applying for a university degree or a master's or something, you need to know the different deadlines, the different dates. A big thing that IBM recommends is signing up to the mailing list, and then you get told when these things happen. So they did a great diversity event, and something that I think people have mentioned on this panel, but a really good thing that's come from having to work remotely is that you can get access to anyone on these events. So we might get, the best presenter or the best example of someone that's won an award from their first year of their internship or something like that. And you get access to all those people immediately. And a bit like you can ask us questions today and we're all in different places. There's definitely a silver lining to that, although I do miss the office. Another thing which it's sort of an event. We have a site, and I'm sure other companies do too. Our site is called Skills Build, and there are courses on there for training for lots of different pathways. So you might decide, I think I want to be, I've got my little list here. You might want to be a data analyst, and there's lots of courses. Now, those themselves are a course, a bit like if you did a LinkedIn course or an online course. They aren't interactive, but in the sense that they're very useful for you to either firstly work out if that's the pathway you want, but secondly then start to engage. And then, for example, like having a good CV, it's one of those things where I've shown interest in this by doing this, and it tells you what to then know about. So that's one of these things that's all online. I think it was launched last year, and it's sort of making the most of having to do things remotely.
Thank you very much. So after we've got quite a good overview of different virtual events now, the big question for us as career service for our students is really about the etiquette. So what is the etiquette for students who are engaging in a virtual event? What are the must-dos and the must-not-dos? What tips do you have for students wanting to get the most out of a virtual event? Who would like to start?
Don't mind starting again.
Yeah, okay.
So I think some of this is kind of fairly basic, and I anticipate a lot of you would do these things. But if you have identified that you're wanting to attend a virtual event, things like logging in on time, making sure your internet is good, although I have to say my internet wasn't very good this morning, so I almost was not going to follow that. Making sure that you are prepared, so you're not just attending some random virtual events and you're logging in and you've got your camera off and you're half listening and you're half cooking breakfast or whatever else you're doing. It's dedicated time where you prepare for the event, you come with some questions, you know why you're attending that particular employer's event. So you've maybe, let's say, for example, you've identified that you want to join an FMCG organisation. So you may be attending a Mars event, a Unilever event, and a P&G event. So each of those events, you do some research beforehand, look at what programs, for example, that they hire for, and come with particular questions based on what you've already read, and make sure that you are vocal. There's always going to be chance at any event for questions, for comments in the chat. So no matter how many people are on the event, if you are prepared and you already know what you want to ask and what's important to you, like be the first person that asks the question, like be the one that engages or responds first if it's an interactive event. And I think, going back to what I originally said, you can't do that for every single employer and for all the events that you will see. So that's why I think it's super important to initially sit down and be like, right, what industry do I want to work in? What organisations within that industry do I want to work in? And then keep track of what events are they doing? How can I be at those events? and come prepared, knowing who's going to be the speaker. Do I have their contact details to speak to them afterwards? Because what we've all mentioned here is that the thing that we've lost from the face-to-face events is that personal interaction, which is so important, both for us as employers, but also for you guys. Like, one of the most important things, I'm sure for you, certainly is for me, is the culture of an organisation. And you can tell that from speaking to the individuals that are representing the company that you're attending the event for. So attend the virtual event, especially if it's a big one, to get all the information and ask any questions that you can. But wherever possible, follow up afterwards and try and have more of a one-to-one conversation with someone, even if it's one of the grads or someone like myself. If you can get on a more individual call and have that personal connection, then that is an absolute result. So that would be my tip. So prepare, don't just attend randomly, prepare, come with questions, and try and have some sort of personable connection with someone after the event.
That's really valuable. Thank you, Juliet.
Just to build on Juliet's point in terms of being prepared, particularly on larger sort of virtual careers fairs, something that I found is that there's a maximum amount of people that can be on the video chat or something like that. So what Juliet was saying about be the first person to ask a question, but also in terms of etiquette, if you are on there and there are a limited amount of people that can be on there, maybe don't ask 5 or 6 questions, sort of ask your most pertinent 1 or 2 questions, and then, as Juliet says, follow up afterwards with anything else that you want, because yes, you want to stand out and make an impression, but maybe speaking for 20 minutes when it's only an hour session isn't really fair to everyone else, and then that might not make the best impression. So being prepared with questions, making sure that you get in there early, but also having etiquette to everyone else that's on the event.
Thank you, Patricia. That's really helpful. Yeah.
I don't mind going next. I think just to build on their points, I feel like we'll be building a tower by the end of this. The thing is that especially in the public sector and for frontline, my experience is that a lot of the events that we do, we are asking the big questions. Like we surround ourselves with like we'll be asking questions about like being a social worker, or we had lots of great questions on an event the other day about like how do you manage your mental health in a social work career and things like that. So the engagement is really, really important, because it's a two-way street. Obviously we want you to engage because it makes the session easier, it makes it flow better, but also you're not going to be getting the best experience or the best knowledge out of that event if you don't participate in some sort of way. And like Juliet said, that preparation is really key, because it means you're coming to that event with some questions that you want answered. If they do get answered, great. If they don't, then you've got the chance to do so. And a lot of our events, obviously I work in recruitment, I've never been a social worker, but a lot of our social workers, alumni who we call fellows at Frontline, they come to our events to provide a real in-person experience of what it feels like to be a social worker and to change those perceptions. And it's even in those scenarios, I would actually say it's even more important to ask questions, because you've got a first-hand person in front of you to be able to demonstrate what that career looks like. And getting a hold of a social worker is a miracle in and of itself, especially in the current climate. So I would make the most of it while you can. The other thing I will say as well, just as a little tip, is that I don't know if you might not know this or not, but especially for us at Frontline, we can see or can track how many events you've been to, or at least how many you've signed up to, what the engagement was like. So, it's helpful to have been to different things and to come prepared and to ask good questions, because those things do matter, especially with recruitment and careers, because we want to make sure that you're applying for the role that you really want, but also that you come knowing what it is you're applying for, and that you feel confident in how the application process is going to go, because all that's going to help to make sure you secure one of the roles. So yeah, that would probably be my main kind of tidbits on that.
Interesting aspect. Anything else to add?
I think, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Bjorn. Oh, just a small point on, I think we mentioned it, this thing of we've had to adapt to a new model, is sort of working from home. different companies, some now are sort of open again, you go in 5 days a week, some it's optional, sort of thing. For me, I can go in, but I have to wear a mask and distance, and it feels quite isolating, so I'm working from home a lot. In that sort of new structure, like I said, right now you can kind of see my bedroom, there's a lot more, I was trying to think of the word, I don't know if honesty is quite the right word, but you bring your whole self to work, and in a sense of, you know, babies crying in the background, dogs barking in the background, Wi-Fi cutting out. These things happen to everyone every day on calls. Tomorrow we're having our gas cut off on our street, and that's going to maybe affect my lunch. You know, that sort of tiny thing that wouldn't affect it in the office. And ideally, that can be avoided for interviews and those important assessment days. But I know, for example, someone I work with who couldn't finish their interview because it cut out, but they were able to follow up. And it was that thing of just being honest about it. You know, I'm really sorry my Wi-Fi cut out. They reached out to them on Facebook. Sorry, not on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wrong platform. And they said, I'm really sorry about that, but it was really good to talk to you. And that really stood out to the recruiter, because they said, he's the only person that followed up. And it was because it had gone wrong. But it's that sort of just the clarity and honesty about it. You know, these things do happen, and it's accepting that even when you're working, you may have to have that sort of thing in your day-to-day in this sort of new getting used to it model. So it's not exactly etiquette, but it's that the willingness to be clear about things and do the best you can with them, but explain when that happens.
Yeah, I think that actually is part of the etiquette. So thank you for sharing that. Björn, do you want to add something?
Yes, I think any recruitment activity that happens is always about two things. It's about the recruiter looking at you saying, do we think that you fit within our company, within our culture? But equally you thinking, what is that company the right fit for me? So, you know, ask your questions and, you know, be the one that follows up. And, you know, we've always got these people like myself will be the first one to jump on and ask questions. And there's always a lot of people actually who have very good questions, but actually they have people like me jumping up first, right? So, you know, get the contact details of the hiring managers of the company you can always reach out to. As much as I like these events, I always would recommend to students, well, you know, get in touch with our people on the front line of how they work in hotels, in ops, in corporate functions, and ask them about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we can sell you a fantastic sales pitch about how wonderful working for a company is, but you need to feel confident of working for a brand or working for a company. And then take it from there. And, you know, I've got my experience, but, you know, that's my experience. And you need to start building your experience, not the experience you got from your mum, your dad, your best friend, your uncle, whoever worked or traveled anywhere. You need to start building your own future, right? So by means doing that, of internships maybe, or of meeting with people actually, you know, working in these companies, I think that's the best way forward. So go back to your placement office in Durham University, ask if they have a list maybe of people working in certain companies that you have an interest in, reach out to them, because they might tell you their true story. And again, it's their story, but it might help you to formulate actually what your, you know, how your career could evolve in that particular company. So, you know, I just put in the chat my email address. It just open if you've got any questions or you want me to link to anybody in our company that gives you a better insight on how working for a company like Hilton, for example, could be. And, you know, a lot of people think it's only a hospitality company, but if you look to our corporate functions, we are recruiting for people in tax and legal and in commercial services and finance and HR and etc. So there's a wider range of roles that sometimes might be available that you might not be aware of right now. And you can really take that next step and take forward. And I think what Georgina mentioned, I think that's a very fair point. A lot of you in the past year and a half, 2 years, have done a lot of remote learning, a lot of remote work. So it's very different of coming back to an office or back to an environment where you are working again with colleagues. And I hope that will happen to you all of you very, very soon. Because I think, you know, as fun as actually doing these kind of communications on these panels are, it's about meeting with people and having that social talk, even with a cup of coffee, and having that chats about how you feel confident, right, Georgina? See you nodding on that.
Yes, so, I want more coffee, yeah.
So I always keep saying that, you know, our industry was hit obviously very, very hard during the pandemic. We lost quite a number of people out there, but there's a clear tendency of people around the world to travel again, to meet people, to go out, etc. So that is the fun part. And I think that goes for all of the industries out there where you are able to meet people. So do that kind of work if you can. Typically, I think what Patricia mentioned, very fair point. If there's only an hour there or an hour and a half that you've got to meet up with some representatives, there might not be enough time for you, but do that follow-up part, and that's essential. The one tip I'd like to give you is sometimes, and I think I hear this all the time, when you show interest in a company, but that company doesn't show interest back in you, my advice to you would be forget the company. Because I think that's always, it's you can find out how there are fantastic sales pitches about how well they present. You will really find out how they really are treating people when you're interacting with them. I think that is crucial, without saying that one company is better than the other. But there are too many companies out there, and we know the crisis that happens right now in the UK, particularly when it comes to employment, that everybody's searching for people and nobody can find it, etc. Those who really are better at treating the people really stand out right now. So have that chat with the employers and take it from there.
That's also a very interesting point. So I asked you about etiquette, and the main point I think that came across for me was that you were talking about interacting with employers and being the first to ask a question, to follow up on LinkedIn later on, and all these things. So that would have been my next question. Actually, I was going to ask you, why is it important for students to interact and not always be passive in a virtual event? But I suspect you have already answered that. Or is there anything else you want to add?
Can I add one thing on this? I think a fun part is, I'm not sure, but we can now see Georgina's bathroom, for example. You mentioned it a couple of times. Things become very private, right? How people do these kind of platforms. The most powerful communication is non-verbal communication. So the way you actually, particularly when your camera is switched on, the way you look and interact on that camera makes a difference. And I think also when you're applying or talking with a potential employer, dress appropriately towards how the dress code will be with that employer. So it doesn't need to be constantly within a suit, etc. But, I sometimes get interviews for roles and I think, oh my gosh, you're not on a holiday break right now. That would fit very well with some other companies, but typically that won't work with a luxury hotel. And sometimes for other roles, it could be a fantastic fit. So dress to the occasion, I think. Be aware of your body language, particularly when you're not speaking as well. Even if you decide to mute yourself and you start communicating with other people, people can see you. So be aware of this and how you really come across. Because I think, particularly when you don't have that luxury of actually meeting people face to face, people actually see multiple faces happening and everybody can see everything that happens on screen. It's a small things that make a difference about how you present yourself.
Just follow up on this, Björn, this is to all the panelists actually. So would you say, for example, if you attend a virtual assessment center, that you should dress as formally as you would in a face-to-face assessment center?
No, dress for the occasion, because, if people come to my assessment centers, my Hilton's assessment centers, they would expect that they need to have a full suit with a tie, etc. And the first thing I would tell people is drop your tie. That's been a long time gone that people have that real formal environment. I would imagine if you work in a law firm or if you work in a banking environment, that might be different. So I think Patricia will be far better to say this. I'm sure that Sean will tell you that is completely different with review, right? So, just do that kind of homework and to find out, what is actually the culture within the company, and what is expected before you go on there to really, not only make a difference, but with you, there are so many other students that actually, in all fairness, have a similar kind of resume. And in order for you to really stand out, this is your time to really stand out and shine. So you want to make a difference, but you want to make a very good first impression.
Yeah, just to echo that. Sorry, if you turned up as a social worker in a full suit, I think there would be some questions to ask.
Right, there you go.
It is dressed, and we have an office. Our dress code in the office is dressed for the occasion, so it's only fair that we expect our assessment centre attendees to do the same. And I think a lot of like Bjorn said, I think we can only see this box, as weird as that sounds. So anything that you do, anything that you say, anything that you look like, your background, everything is the only thing we have to go on, apart from obviously your applications and things like that. So, and our assessment centres contain some, we have scenarios with a care experienced person. We have scenarios, we ask you to do a role play with an actor who's pretending to be a family member that's being affected, and you would be the social worker. So there's all those things going into play that if you're not comfortable and you're not in something that makes you feel comfortable, you're not going to perform as well either. So it's got to be something, that you obviously maybe legal might be slightly different, I don't know, but I think that you have to make sure that you're in the best space as well, especially when it comes to assessment centres, because this is the only bit that we see, and we want to make sure, and that kind of goes across everything, assessment centres and actually events, putting yourself in a comfortable space, wearing something that makes you feel confident and happy and that suits the format of the event and what you're doing and how you're speaking is all plays a part in how good you perform, ironically, in those scenarios. And those are things you can do before the assessment centre. Those are things you can do before the event. So doing those is almost easy street, really. If you've got those down, you're already in a good stead.
That's great advice. Thank you.
I feel like I need to clear up. Yes, you are still expected to wear a suit at a law interview, but particularly when you come into the office, I'm actually in our office today. We have a policy of dress for your day. So, for example, I have panel events today, so I'm wearing a more formal outfit than maybe I usually would, but obviously our lawyers, if they're going out to meet clients, would be expected to be in suits unless they're going to meet clients that would balk at that. So it's completely dress for your day, but we would still say that an assessment centre is a formal enough occasion to not necessarily full suit, jacket and tie, especially if they're virtual, but definitely a shirt or smart top half.
Okay, so it really depends on the company as well. So the culture is important here. Yes, Georgina.
Sorry, if I just add a top tip, a tip I was given in sort of sales training. I don't know if you can tell that I've been moving around a little bit because I have a bad habit of shifting on my feet. But standing up is one of those things that in an assessment centre you might be doing, depending on what you're being given to do there. But when you're at home or when you're in your room at uni or when you're applying for things, you don't get that opportunity. I was advised, firstly, I used to sit, so I work at that table normally when I'm from home, and it means I have my window behind me. And so I was told that it's like a halo effect and that's very bad. So I started to close the curtains, which I tried, and it just put me in a bad mood all day. It's like it's nighttime all day and it just didn't work for me at all. I had the light on, but I hated it. So for me, if I'm trying to think clearly or if I'm presenting, I like to stand at my window and I just have like a box underneath my laptop, a very basic setup. I've seen a lot of photos on LinkedIn of people with ironing boards and you put it on a bed. Again, you might not have one at uni, but it's that sort of setup of if it suits you, if you enjoy and feel more comfortable, as Sean was saying about feeling comfortable in what you're doing, if for you that's standing up, then try and see if you can somehow get a laptop elevated. And it has a natural light as well, which is a nice free thing rather than all these fancy lights people can have sometimes.
Great, thank you. Juliet, anything to add here? Or?
No, I think everyone said some great comments there. The only thing I would reiterate, and I think the theme that goes across is that be comfortable so you can do your best, and also be comfortable so that you're not conscious of what you're looking like. So, for example, if you're in an interview and you're constantly looking at your bottom right screen and how you're looking, that's going to be really distracting for the interviewer. So when you log on, make sure you're comfortable in what you're looking like and where you are, and then don't look at your screen anymore. Look at the interviewer, because if you were in a face-to-face situation, obviously you would just be concentrating on the person that's interviewing you. So try not to be distracted and keep looking at yourself, although it is difficult.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. Björn also mentioned something about cameras being on or off. That's always a big topic, even at university. So in lectures, in online lectures and so on, whether students should turn off or on the camera. And there's a question in the chat because it depends on the event. So in an event like this, obviously there is no chance to turn the camera on. So let me just read out the question here. In sessions such as these, we sit with our cameras off and can only interact through these Q&As. How can we make more personal impressions in situations such as these? This is from Michael.
I think exactly what you're doing, Michael, putting a question in the Q&A, putting a question in the chat box, and as Juliet said earlier, it's a common theme, but taking the names of the panelists, finding them on LinkedIn, following up with them. I think they're the ways in which you can really differentiate in this particular setting where we can't see you, we can't hear you, there's not really an option to do that. Making sure that you're asking pertinent questions and following up.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Nothing to add to that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So thank you for that. Another question that has come in a Zoom interview, would you recommend looking at the interviewer, or is it better to look at your webcam so that it looks more like natural eye contact?
Definitely the interviewer, be looking because you want to be bouncing off their kind of body language as well. I'm trying to do it now. If I'm looking at the camera rather than looking at my screen, very distracting, very difficult to do actually. So yeah, be looking directly at the interview, I'd say.
But I understand the challenge because you see yourself in a small box, and that box may be on the left upper corner or right on the corner, and that you're constantly looking like, am I seeing things? So it looks like you're completely looking in a different way. So funny enough, I'm actually on my big screen and on my laptop, and when I'm having my Teams, I need to be looking on my big screen. But when I'm with Zoom, I need to go back to my laptop. So it's always like, where am I on screen now? It's finding a place. But I think that's what I mentioned before. Just say it. And then listen, I'm with these two screens, so I'm doing my best. But I fully agree with Juliette. Try to look at the interview as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a tip that we give is if you've got any notes that you want to have with you, stick them like on the wall behind the camera or basically at your eye level, because if you're consistently looking down, that doesn't present the best way. Particularly, for example, our interview process, we have some pre-recorded video interviews, so if for 2 minutes we've got a video of you doing this on camera, that's not going to be any good to anyone. So sticking any notes that you have on post-its or blue tacking to the wall behind where you're doing this really helps you to be able to engage, give the best performance, but also engage with the camera or the person that you're interviewing with.
And you are referring to digital interviews right now, Patricia?
Yeah, so pre-recorded video interviews, yeah.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think actually, I know with our video interview system and with like Zoom and Teams, I know it's really nerve-wracking, but you can actually close looking at yourself. You can close that box sometimes with some platforms. And I thoroughly recommend it to everybody I interview, because I know it's terrifying. Once you've sat down, you've seen yourself, you make sure you look all right, get rid of it, because then there's no temptation. You've got no choice but to look at the interviewer. And I know it's like nerve-wracking, what if my hair falls out of place or the camera goes off or whatever, but actually it creates like a more genuine, because you can't see you when you're in a real interview, so why would you want to in a online one? Like, it doesn't, like I always say, if you can and you feel comfortable, obviously, but get rid of it, because it creates a more genuine experience. Obviously some platforms might not allow it, things like that, but I know with, especially like Patricia said, with our video interviews, which obviously you're not speaking to a real person, you're speaking to just yourself through the camera, but it has an option for you to not see yourself, and I think it just makes things easier on you, and then you're not distracted by it.
Also enjoy the experience. We were working with a company called HireView to do those digital interviews. And the first question they always ask is just share something about yourself, just to break the ice, right? Because it's the first question, you become very nervous, you see a clock ticking at 3 minutes or 4 minutes, how much time you have. Sometimes students think like, I need to fill the whole 3-4 minutes, and they start by waffling around about all kinds of topics which are completely irrelevant to the topic. But some of them are very to the point to give you within 30 seconds their answers, and both of it basically is fine. So you need to find your common ground there and start to relax. Have a look if you can redo the questions on these platforms. So we actually allow that to people to retake the question once or twice, so they actually have given the right answers, and do some trial runs on that. We know when you record yourself, I've got 2 daughters, they're both recording themselves on Snapchat and on Instagram, whatever it is. Our voices sound strange. We look strange when you're on camera. And for some reason, young people are used to having these phones in their hands and filming themselves for all kinds of purposes. But when it comes to recruitment, suddenly it becomes exciting. And this is real fun to see, right? So just be aware, we're not going to make a blooper video on YouTube from whatever we see happening. We could, and we will laugh our asses off, I can tell you, but we won't because of privacy reasons. But have some fun with that. And try to see this as a sales platform, because your resume might look pretty much the same as the resumes of everybody, all of your peers and friends in your class. And in order to really stand out, you can use those online digital platforms like HireView or any of the other platforms the other companies are using to really promote yourself, to show us actually who you really are without having to see one of us into person. So take that as an opportunity. Don't see that as a big threat.
Can I just come back to the virtual careers fairs, because we are now in careers fair season in Durham, so it's quite relevant right now. What have your experience? What has your experience been with virtual careers fairs over the last year? What have students done well, and what haven't they done so well? And has anything stood out to you in particular?
Look, I think given the circumstances that all of us were in, I think this was we've got to admit, it was a fantastic switch to in-person fairs to online fairs. I think that almost felt seamlessly. And we've took a lot of learning out of this because, I think maybe in hospitality, that might be one of the few sectors where we always said that, things can't be done fully online. And I think if there ever was an example that things could switch from in-person to online, it was during the pandemic. So if there's something that really good that came out, is that digital platforms are working in a better way. And I think we all had to leverage on whatever was possible. And we're very grateful that we were able to connect with universities, we were able to connect with students, and we were able to continue doing the work that we were doing, right? Now it's to start optimizing it. And I feel that there's a kind of a saturation point happening where students feel like it's great to meet people online, but I'd rather meet people face to face again. And that's what I meant before, to find a kind of a hybrid model there where you really can do that. And I think all of the companies will start doing that, whether it's that through Zoom, whether that's through Teams. So we've done our fair share there as well. I'm really looking forward to be back on the Durham University campus to meet students in person myself, because I think that's the more fun part with it. You have more lengthy and more in-depth conversations with people. But I can also imagine when you've got volume intakes that these platforms are fantastic in there. So, it's a great addition, I think, to the tools that we were working with in the past and now. And that's, I think, how we need to see it. So let's take the best out of what happened the past, 18-24 months?
Sorry?
I think, this is, if there's anything good that comes out of this pandemic, then, we need to take these tools as a positive and work with these for future purposes. Exactly.
Any other?
I think just to say that I think everyone moved very quickly towards virtual. There were a lot of hiccups last year in terms of sort of learning the new platforms and ways of working. So what we're hoping is that this year we're better able to engage with people on those platforms and in those careers fairs, because I think everyone will say we made do last year and we did the best that we could, but we've definitely taken some learnings from that. We approached them in a very different way. The organisation, there's been a full year to be able to prepare for it, as opposed to just 3 or 4 weeks. So that's more ideal. So eventually we'll go back to in person, but for now we've had some learn. So hopefully it will be a better experience, both for the employer but also for the potential employees to be able to engage with us properly.
Okay, thank you.
So I would say the best thing that you can take out of this is that we have all spoken about this personal connection and missing that and the importance of that. So the best thing that you can do is be proactive about creating that yourself. So rather than waiting until we're back face to face on campus or an opportunity lands in your lap to connect directly with someone from an organisation that you want to work for, be really proactive about reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, getting their contact details at careers fairs. I think that would make the biggest difference in terms of a tip for you guys to be proactive about.
I guess in terms of career fairs, I think it's like Juliet said, it's really important that you are able to make like a good connection and a good first impression as well. Often it's the first time that you'll meet any of us from career fairs, and I feel like the majority of the questions that I get at career fairs are like, what is it that you do, what is it that you're hiring for, like the big larger kind of wider questions. I would say it's definitely important to do the preparation. Just because it's a career fair and it's invitational doesn't mean you don't have the chance to make the most of the career fair by having a look at the employers going, making a list of the ones you want to chat to, what you might want to ask them about. All that sort of stuff can make our jobs and your jobs easier when it comes to a career fair. I had a couple of questions about data scientists the other day, and I was just like, did you not? Hello, hi. I mean, most of the time I was just like, we'd love to, but we can't. Apologies, good luck. But I think it's one of those things that I think it's, and I definitely had a better impression as a recruiter from students that came to me and said, we've seen Frontline, we've kind of had a little bit of a read. I wanted to ask you a question about this, or even just, we know you do social work. What is it? Do you think I'd be eligible? What is it we can apply for? You know, it just makes those interactions smoother and easier, and also like lets you make a good first impression, and get the information that you need out of that.
And just adding what Sean said, please don't come with questions like, what can you offer me? As a first question. So my answer was always, we can offer you rooms and food and beverage and travel. I'm sure Juliet will say, okay, give you Mars bars and whiskers. I mean, you know, that's not the case. So I fully agree, I fully back what Sean was mentioning. If you come back with that kind of initiative, say, I've spoken to a person from your company, I would be interested in topic XYZ, could you tell me slightly more about it? That is a far better entry than actually coming to us and say, what can you offer me? And you don't want to know how often we get these questions on fairs, even on online fairs. So please don't ask that question without being prepared.
That's a really good tip, I think. I can see we are coming towards the end of our session. There are lots of questions coming in, and I don't think we will have the time to deal with them now, but could you please send us these questions again by email? So it would be careers.events@Durham AC UK. So careers.events. And then we'll try our best to come back to you on these. But now we've got 5 minutes left. So I would like to give the panelists a chance, maybe with a last tip for, one tip for the students for engaging virtually in recruitment events. Does anybody want to start?
I'm happy starting.
Thank you, Georgina.
So I didn't answer on the panels because I haven't been involved in any, but my outlook with these things is that if it feels awkward now online, it will still feel awkward when you're working, and everyone's had to get used to it in the sense that, again, ideally it would be a hybrid. I'm really excited that my company's got a new office they're developing, which is more of a sort of more of an engaged space, more open desks and open plan type thing. So there's definitely lots to look forward to in offices as well. But I do feel that with most companies now, when you apply to them, you have to sort of accept that there will be some balance of online. It does depend on the industry, it does depend on the role, of course. But at least maybe, let's say, technology industry, I'm sure that's true of most technologies, that because some clients and partners, and you might be reaching further than before in your geographies, you're going to be doing some calls online. And basically being aware of what it is that frustrates you or makes you feel slightly uncomfortable about it, and then just sort of facing that. So for me, becoming more comfortable with reaching out to people I don't know and saying, can we have a half an hour call? That's me as an employee rather than someone trying to find a job. But this is the sort of thing that it's still uncomfortable to me. And so it's totally understandable that it is online now. But it is actually, well, someone very frustratingly said to me, you're lucky that I got 2 months in the office and then had to be at home because of COVID, because it's meant that I'm immediately used to this sort of new model, the hybrid model, doing these online, and I've done it straight away. And that's sort of upsetting to me, but equally, it is sort of a skill set everyone needs. So my top tip is be aware of what it is that frustrates you about it, or that you find slightly embarrassing or awkward about it, and just sort of face that, or at least, try and really understand what that is, and then that will help. Another thing is that we have a recruitment spotlight event that I'll be presenting, and I'm trying to make it engaging in the sense of, as we've all spoken about interaction, the skills that will be useful online to you are the skills that are the same as being interactive online now. So I'm going to try and sort of use some polls, use some sort of group thinking, let people have to come off mute and such things, because those are the skills that you would be doing at IBM if you were going to be hired there. So join that event. It's a Durham exclusive event next Tuesday.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Georgina. So we've got 3 minutes left. I don't know, Juliet, do you want to?
Yeah. So I'll go quickly. So mine would be the proactivity. So just because the company, for example, that you are interested in is running a virtual event with 200 people, doesn't mean that you can't then reach out to a particular individual and form that personal connection that you would have had at a careers fair, for example. Not only is that going to give you the information that you need in a more intimate setting, but it demonstrates a a quality that no doubt lots of graduate programs are looking for. So proactivity within the workplace is really important. So if you can show that, before you even started the recruitment process, then that's going to be a brilliant quality to demonstrate.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Sean?
I would definitely say, if we were going to talk about the assessment centre side, but also in one-to-ones, my top tip would be to be yourself. I think that, like Bjorn said earlier, that this is a two-way street. We want to make sure that the role is good for you and that you fit as much as you want to make sure that you want the role and that you've got the skills to do it. And I think sometimes, particularly with virtual, it's even easier when it comes to an interview or an assessment centre to sort of put on a little persona and be, exactly what you think that employer is going to be looking for. But fundamentally, I think it just sometimes results in bad matches. I think that, you need to and it's all about that, like I was talking about earlier, the comfortable space, the clothing, everything like that all ties into you being your authentic self when it comes to one-to-ones, but specifically when it comes to interviews and assessment centres. So I would really say, just because it's virtual doesn't mean you can't be individual and authentic and true to yourself. And actually, that's all we could ask for in terms of employers, to make sure that you want the job, but also that you will be the right fit for the role that you're applying for. Thank
you. That's great. Bjorn?
Yes, I think there's also a question that was in the chat of what are I expecting from a graduate to join. And listen, so we're not expecting you to have all skills required to become a vice president in Hilton within a year of time, right? So, we hire an attitude, we can train you. So we've got a very extensive Hilton University with more than 2,500 courses from all different departments, all different levels. Our LinkedIn learning accessible for all team members around the world. So if you can't find the learning in hospitality with us, then you can't find it anywhere. Is our logo and motto on that side. And so, if you've got the right mindset and the right attitude to join a company, and you've done that through the proper preparation, I think all of us have said to you before, then I wouldn't see a reason why you can't be successful at Hilton or any of the other companies we presented on this panel today. Because I think those technicalities, those skills are to be learned while you're actually starting either your internship or your first job or your graduate program. So, that might be different than other companies. And I think when you would join a company like Hilton, one of our grad schemes, we're not screening you on how many skills you really have. Obviously, we want a person to be, feel comfortable working in the hospitality environment and be able to serve other people, because that's ultimately what our industry is all about. And I think that could be part of your preparation to really find out what actually that next role, regardless if that's an internship or a grad role or a direct entry role, might be all about, and if that really fits. And to be honest with that, so by the time that you graduate, most likely in the UK, you still have to work another 50 years before you go on retirement. You better well start to enjoy what you do. So find a place where you actually have fun in the job, where you can have a good laugh, where you feel comfortable, and you'll find out actually that is far more important than actually starting with a job because it has the fancy title and the fancy name of the company on the door. So that would be my advice.
And Patricia.
Sorry, I know we're over time, but I would just reiterate, do your research before you turn up to any virtual event, and make sure that you're prepared to engage with the camera so that you can get across the best version of yourself on that day.
Thank you. Very succinct advice. That's very important. So time is up now. Thank you, panelists, so much for your time. I think this has been really appreciated by us and also all the participants here. Just for the students, where you can find information. Go to our website, or you can always send an email to that email address and ask. For example, we have a help sheet on this topic as well. So if you can't find it online, just let us know, or if you have any other questions. And as I said, send an email with the questions we couldn't answer. And you will also be asked for feedback, for online feedback later on. So we would appreciate if you could fill in the feedback questionnaire as well. Thanks again to our panel. It was a really enlightening session and I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very much.